I ordered milk delivery for half a year but only got to drink it 5 times. The rest all ended up in the neighbor lady's stomach. I installed a camera, but she wore a mask to steal it. I got up early to grab it, but she was earlier than me. Finally, I had to resort to my ultimate move. Cash on delivery. I thought everything was fine. 7 days later, the property managio stood at my door with a grave expression. He handed me a piece of paper. On it were 4 words. That left me frozen on the spot. I moved into this neighborhood half a year ago. To get a bit more sleep in the morning, I subscribed to fresh milk delivery. The milkman puts the milk in my box before 6 every morning. I usually get up at 7:30. After washing up, I opened the milk box, empty. At first, I thought the milkman forgot. I called to ask. He insisted he delivered it, saying, "Don't worry. I've been delivering in this neighborhood for 3 years. Never made a mistake. Maybe a neighbor's kid took it as a prank." But the next day, the box was empty again. The third day, still empty. I got a bit angry. 3 days in a row. This isn't normal, I told the milkman. "Tomorrow, send me a message after you deliver." He agreed. On the 4th morning, I was woken by my phone vibrating before 6. The milkman messaged me, and I got up immediately. I rushed to the door and opened it. The box was empty. The motion sensor light outside was still on. There was a faint chill lingering in the air. This meant someone took the milk in the few seconds between my message and opening the door. Who would be so annoying? And every day at that. I decided to install a camera and ordered one online. It arrived the next day. I mounted the camera in the corner above the door. The position was very hidden. It could clearly capture my doorway and the area opposite. I connected it to my phone EP. I set up motion detection alerts. After doing all this, I felt much more at ease. I wanted to see who this mysterious person was, so obsessed with a bottle of my milk. On the 5th morning, my phone vibrated right around 5:50. It was a motion detection notification. I immediately opened the EP for live monitoring. A figure appeared in the frame. That person looked familiar. It was Aunt Wang, who lives next door. She's retired and usually very warm-hearted. When I first moved in, she even gave me a plate of dumplings. She always asked after me, a young guy, with concern. "Xiao Li, you're busy with work. Take care of yourself." "Xiao Li, have you found a girlfriend yet?" I never imagined it would be her. In the footage, she was wearing pajamas, her hair a mess, and a big blue mask on her face, covering almost half of it. She walked to my door, skillfully opened my milk box, looked around, took out the milk inside, and quickly turned back into her own home. The whole process took less than 10 seconds. I stared at the phone screen, stunned. It really was her. I rewound the 6DO. She seemed to know where the camera was, deliberately avoiding looking this way. Wearing a mask was also to hide her face. She knew about the camera. A surge of anger rose in me. I treated you like a caring elder, and you treated me like a fool. A bottle of milk isn't worth much, but I couldn't swallow this insult. I saved the 6DO evidence. I had it, but I hesitated to confront her directly. After all, she's a neighbor. If we fell out, we'd see each other every day. How awkward. And she's old. What if I said something and she had a heart attack? I decided to give her one more chance. I planned to be earlier than her. The next day, I set my alarm for 5:30. I woke up before dawn and didn't turn on the light. I quietly walked to the door, peeked through the peephole. The hallway was pitch black, only the green glow of the emergency exit light in the distance. I waited patiently. At 5:45, I heard the milkman's familiar footsteps, and the soft clink of glass bottles. The sound was clear in the hallway. The milkman stopped at my door, opened the box, put in the milk, closed it, then moved on to the next house. I waited for his footsteps to fade, counted to 10 in my head, then yanked the door open. No one was there, and the milk box was empty. I stood there, stunned. How was that possible? I had been watching through the peephole the whole time, and I never saw anyone come by. I immediately checked the camera EP on my phone. No motion detection alerts at all. I double-checked the EP settings. No problem. I pulled up the footage from that time. The screen was completely black. Nothing there. I understood. She knew the camera angle at my door. She came up from the other staircase, crouched down in the camera's blind spot, and silently took the milk. I even suspected she was lying in wait at the stairwell corner, grabbing it the moment the milkman left. That's how she finished before I opened the door. A chill ran down my spine. This wasn't just petty greed. This was a pathological obsession. She went to all this trouble for that milk, timing it, planning the route, maybe even figuring out my daily routine. I'm a young guy working overtime every day. How could I outsmart a retired auntie who puts all her energy into this? After work that afternoon, I ran into her in the elevator. "Xiao Li, you're back." She greeted me cheerfully, looking all kind and gentle, carrying a basket of groceries. "Aunt Wang, been shopping?" I forced a smile. Yeah, making something nice for your Uncle Zhang tonight. She looked at me with that caring elder's gaze. I stared at her smiling face, unable to connect it to the masked figure. Sneaking around in the early morning, people like her are terrifying. I decided to stop playing games with her. Direct confrontation still felt wrong. What if she fell to the floor, crying and making a scene? I'd never be able to explain. Call the police? Over a bottle of milk? The cops would just try to smooth things over. I thought it over. I didn't need to prove she stole my milk. I just wanted to drink the milk I paid for. Since her target was the milk in the box, I'd make sure there was no milk in the box. I pulled out my phone and called the milk company's customer service. I had one more idea. The last one. I told customer service, I want to change my milk delivery method. Hello, how can I help you? I don't want the milkman to leave it in the box anymore. Is there a problem with the box? No, I don't want prepayment anymore. I want to switch to cash on delivery. Sir, most of our customers use prepayment, monthly or yearly plans. It's more cost-effective, I know, but I don't mind the hassle. I want the milkman to knock on my door every morning when he delivers. I'll pay and take the milk then. Sir, you'll need to have exact change ready each day, and the milkman is very busy in the morning. He might not be able to knock at a fixed time. No problem, I'll accept a general time window. I'll be home waiting between 6 and 6:30. I'm willing to get up early for this milk. Oh cool, sir, I've noted that. Starting tomorrow, we'll provide cash on delivery service, single payment. Thanks, I hung up, feeling a weight lift off my shoulders. I admit I lost. I couldn't outsmart a cunning habitual thief. I had to use this clumsiest, yet most effective method to protect my milk. Cash on delivery. She couldn't snatch it from the milkman's hands, right? She couldn't pay for me, could she? Thinking about it, I even started looking forward to the next morning. I imagined Aunt Wang, as usual, sneaking up to my milk box, opening it to find it empty. What expression would she have? Disappointment? Anger? Would she think the milkman forgot? Then day after day, she'd open that empty box, and eventually realize her fry milk was gone. That felt more satisfying than confronting her face to face. That night, I slept really well. The next morning, I woke up right at 6, without an alarm. I went to the living room, made some tea, and sat on the sofa waiting for 6:15. A soft knock came at the door. 3 rhythmic taps. I walked over and looked through the peephole. It was the milkman. I opened the door. Your milk. I handed him the exact change I had prepared. Sorry to trouble you every day from now on. No trouble at all. It's my job. The milkman gave a simple smile, then turned and left. I closed the door and leaned against it, looking at the milk bottle in my hand, cold, still carrying the morning dampness. I unscrewed the cap and took a big gulp. A rich, milky flavor filled my mouth. This was the taste. How long had it been since I last drank it? Half a year. Over 180 days. I only had it 5 times. This was the 6th. Earned through my own wit and compromise. I walked to the window with the milk. The sky already lightening. Downstairs, elderly people were out exercising. Everything was so peaceful. I opened my phone and checked the camera. Less than a minute after I closed the door, Aunt Wang's figure appeared. As expected, she was in the same getup, wearing a mask, tiptoeing to my milk box. Opening it skillfully, then she froze. Her hand fumbled inside the box for a long time. She closed it, opened it again, still empty. She stood there, confused, as if wondering what went wrong. She even walked to the stairwell to trek, then came back. Finally, she left reluctantly. I watched the surveillance footage, a smile creeping onto my face. That day, I was in a great mood. Over the next few days, every morning just after 6, the milkman would knock on my door on time. I handed over the money, he handed over the milk, and I started my day drinking the hard-earned milk. Every morning, I'd habitually trek the camera. Aunt Wang would always show up a few minutes after the milkman left. She'd persistently open my milk box every day, then leave disappointed. I almost felt a bit sorry for her, but remembering what she'd done, that pity vanished. Not exposing her was already my greatest mercy. I was just taking back what was rightfully mine. We still met in the elevator. Her smile was noticeably less frequent. She'd just nod at me reluctantly, her eyes carrying a hint of resentment and curiosity. I guessed she was wondering how I did it. I acted like I knew nothing, greeting her as usual. Good morning, Aunt Wang. She'd give a non-committal The elevator was silent. I thought this was fine. We kept to ourselves. My world was peaceful. This calm lasted for a week. I thought the matter would blow over. I thought the war over milk between us had ended with my indirect victory. I was too naive. I underestimated someone's moral low. On the afternoon of the 7th day, I was at home working overtime on a proposal. The doorbell rang. I thought it was food delivery, so I got up to answer. At the door stood the property manager, Mr. Liu, a middle-aged man in his 40s. We rarely interacted. Behind him were two men in security uniforms. Manager Liu, what's up? I was a bit surprised. Manager Liu's expression was serious, even grim. He didn't speak, just looked me up and down. His gaze was like he was looking at a suspect, making me very uncomfortable. Xiao Li, right? He finally spoke. His tone very official. Det. I need to verify something with you, he said, taking a folder from the security guard behind him, pulling out an A4 sheet, and handing it to me. Take a look at this first. His expression was like a judge delivering a verdict. My heart skipped a beat. I had a bad feeling. I took the paper, it was just a printout. On it were a few bold lines. The title read, Application for Compensation for Mental Distress from Neighbor Li. Li was me. The applicant, Wang, was Aunt Wang next door. I was stunned. Mental distress compensation? What right did she have to demand that from me? I read on to the application reason. When I got to the last part, 4 words written by hand, pressing hard into the paper, I felt all the blood drain from my body. It was like being struck by lightning, frozen on the spot. Those 4 words were, cutting off my food supply. My hands started shaking as I held the paper. This was the most absurd accusation I'd ever heard. I read the entire application carefully. It was written with tearful drama. In her statement, Aunt Wang said, she was a lonely, helpless retired old woman. Half a year ago, she noticed that in her neighbor's milk box, there was a bottle of caring milk every day. She thought it was a community welfare for special groups, or that the young guy ordered too much, and was sharing the extra. Following the principle of not wasting food, she helped dispose of it every day. She said that over these 6 months, this bottle of milk had become her only source of nutrition, the spiritual pillar supporting her old age. However, just a week ago, this young man, that is, me, ruthlessly and evilly cut off this caring supply, causing her to go a whole week without enough protein, leaving her dazed, with no appetite, unable to sleep, even triggering her high blood pressure and heart condition, causing her immense mental trauma and physical harm. Therefore, she strongly demanded that I immediately restore the milk supply, and compensate her for mental distress, nutrition, and lost time, a total of 5,000 yuan. After reading it, I was too angry to speak. I felt like I wasn't reading a complaint, but a bizarre novel. Caring milk, helping, spiritual pillar, cutting off my food supply. How can someone be so shameless? Turning theft into something so elegant, so self-righteous. This. I opened my mouth, but my voice came out hoarse. You've read it all. This is ridiculous. She stole my milk. And now she's suing me? I held up the paper. Xiao Li, calm down first. Aunt Wang says, she didn't know it was your order. She thought it was community welfare. Then why did she wear a mask and avoid the camera? Would she do that if she didn't know? Manager Liu paused. Right, the camera. I have evidence. I save the footage every day. Xiao Li, let's not rush this. What do you mean? This is a false accusation. We're here today, not to judge who's right or wrong, but to mediate. Manager Liu's tone softened a bit. Aunt Wang is old. She's very emotional. She says if you don't restore the supply, she'll go to your workplace and cause trouble, or jump from the building. I shuddered. A threat. This was a blatant threat. Your neighbors. No need to make things so tense. How about this? We'll calm Aunt Wang down on our end. You soften your stance a bit too. She's an elder. How do I soften? Give her money? Or let her keep stealing my milk? I felt like my worldview was being ground into the dirt. Just think of it as being generous. Order 1 extra bottle every day for Aunt Wang. Why should I? Consider it, respecting the elderly. A bottle of milk is 7 yuan. That's only about 200 a month. Buy yourself some peace of mind, right? I looked at Manager Liu's peacemaker face, and suddenly understood. He wasn't here to uphold justice. He was here to keep the peace. Aunt Wang was an unstable element, a problem. And I was a reasonable, compromising young man. So he chose to sacrifice my interests to settle this mess, because it was the cheapest way. A wave of sadness and anger washed over me. In this world, it's not about who's right. It's about who's more willing to go all out, who's more shameless. I took a deep breath. forcing myself to calm down. I looked at Ma Jiolu and said, word by word, mediation, right? Fine. Time and place. Ma Jiolu seemed surprised I agreed so quickly, a look of relief on his face. Tomorrow at 10, in the community activity room. A community mediator will be there too. I'll be there on time. Ma Jiolu left satisfied. I closed the door, leaning against the cold door panel, slowly sliding down to sit on the floor. I looked at the A4 paper in my hand, cutting off my food supply. Those 4 words burrowed into my brain like a snake. I laughed until tears came out. You want to play? I'll play with you to the end. I spent the whole night preparing. This wasn't a war over milk. This was a battle for dignity and boundaries. I couldn't lose. First, I exported all my milk order records and payment receipts from the past 6 months, printed them into a booklet, over 180 days, every single one. That was physical evidence. Then, I downloaded all the footage of Aunt Wang stealing the milk from the camera onto my computer. From when she didn't wear a mask, to when she did, to when she avoided the camera's blind spots. I clipped every segment, arranged them by date and time, and made a 10-minute documentary. I even gave it a title. The Self-Cultivation of a Habitual Thief. I also prepared a UET by Drive, with all the videos on it. Next, I called the milk company's customer service. I asked if they could send an employee to accompany me to the community tomorrow, to verify my order and payment method change. At first, they refused, but after I hinted I might go to the media about their failure to protect customer property, they agreed. They'd send the milkman who delivered to me, with his work ID, to testify. Finally, I looked up a ton of cases about lawsuits and neighbor disputes online. I learned how to stay calm during mediation, how to state facts clearly and logically, and how not to be swayed by the other side's emotions. I even did a full mental rehearsal of tomorrow's mediation. I imagined all possible reactions from Aunt Wang: crying, faking illness, throwing a tantrum, turning the tables. For each reaction, I prepared a counter-strategy. I wanted to make her understand that young people aren't pushovers, and being reasonable doesn't mean being weak. After all that, dawn had broken. I hadn't slept all night, but I was strangely energized. I took a shower, put on clean, neat clothes, and looked in the mirror. I saw my bloodshot, but unusually bright eyes. I told myself, don't be afraid. You're not fighting alone. Behind you stands the word justice. At 9:50 in the morning, I walked into the community activity room with my file bag. Quite a few people were already there. In the middle was a long table. On one side sat Aunt Wang, with a middle-aged woman who looked like her daughter beside her. On the other side sat 2 community mediators in uniform. Ma Jiolu was also there, sitting next to the mediators. A few neighbors were scattered around, watching. As soon as I entered, all eyes were on me. Aunt Wang immediately started her act, holding a handkerchief to her chest, looking like she might faint any second. Her daughter shot me a glare, her eyes like knives. The mediator spoke. You're Xiao Li, right? Have a seat. I pulled out a chair, and sat down at the other end of the long table. I put the file bag on the table and delivered the milk. The delivery guy hasn't arrived yet. I need to wait for him. The mediator cleared his throat. Everyone's here. Let's begin then, Aunt Wang. First, state your demands. Aunt Wang's daughter helped her and spoke up first. Her voice was sharp and loud. My mom's demand is simple. She's an elderly woman in poor health. She just hopes to drink hot milk every morning to nourish herself. This young man is vicious. He cut it off without warning. My mom hasn't eaten or slept well for a week. Her blood pressure even spiked. We demand compensation from him. Compensation of 5,000 yuan for mental distress. Not a single cent less. And he must immediately resume milk delivery for my mom. The entire activity room fell silent. Everyone looked at me. A few neighbors watching started whispering. This young man is a bit too much. How can he treat an elderly person like this? Exactly. A bottle of milk costs so little. I could feel those disapproving gazes, piercing into me like needles. I didn't refute immediately. I just quietly watched Aunt Wang's daughter perform. After she finished, the mediator turned to me. Regarding Aunt Wang's family's claims, what do you think? Before I could speak, Aunt Wang started her part. How miserable. I'm an old woman with no one to rely on. I just want to drink some milk. What's wrong with that? I thought it was a government benefit. If I knew it was this young man's, I definitely wouldn't have taken it. She cried while secretly peeking at my reaction through her fingers. Her acting was top-notch. Aunt Wang, don't cry first. let's take it one step at a time. First, I want to clarify one thing. What you call charity milk or government benefit is a product I personally ordered and paid for with my own money each month. These are all my order and payment records from 6 months ago until now. They have my name, my phone number, and my apartment number. A total of 183 days, totaling 1,281 yuan, all paid by me personally. The mediator and Ma Najio Lu leaned in to look. Aunt Wang's daughter also peeked over. Her expression turned a bit awkward. Second, you said you thought it was a benefit, not knowing it was mine. I can't agree with that. You take the milk every morning at between 5 and 6 a.m. Most people are still asleep at that time. You wear a mask and deliberately avoid the surveillance camera at my door. If it really was a benefit, why would you need to be so cautious? You're slandering me. My mom exercises early in the morning. Wearing a mask prevents colds. We don't know anything about surveillance. Don't know. Today, I happened to bring some clips of her exercising. Would everyone lie to watch them together? As soon as I finished speaking, the door to the activity room opened. The milk delivery guy ran in, panting. Oh, sorry. Traffic was heavy. I'm late. He was wearing his work uniform, with his badge on his chest. I nodded at him. No problem. You're just in time. My backup has arrived. I looked at the mother and daughter across from me. Their expressions were already changing. Buddy, please tell everyone why I changed the payment method. The milk delivery guy nodded. He cleared his throat. Because this gentleman told me that he had ordered milk for 6 months, and almost every day it went missing. So he asked me to deliver it in person. And he pays on the spot. One sentence directly shattered the lie about charity milk. The neighbors' murmurs began to shift. So it was theft. I knew it. There's no such good benefit. Aunt Wang's face turned red and then pale. Her daughter's lips trembled. She wanted to say something but couldn't. No, it's not wrong. I just saw milk in the box and took it. It would be a waste if no one drank it. She started to play dirty. I'm old. My memory is bad. I thought I ordered it myself. I forgot there was a problem here. Even she didn't believe it. Your memory is bad? No problem. I'll help you remember. I stood up and walked to the TV in the corner of the activity room. I took out a UET by drive and plugged it into the TV's UET by port. Ma Najio Lu, please hand me the remote control. I turned on the TV, switched to UET by mode. A folder appeared on the screen. I used the remote to open a 6DO file titled, The Self-Cultivation of a Habitual Thief. The 6DO started playing. The first clip was from 6 months ago. Aunt Wang, without a mask, sneaked up to my door, took the milk, and quickly left. The second kip, a few days later, she started wearing a mask. The third kip, a month later, I installed a new camera. She started crawling from the other side of the stairs, in an extremely awkward posture, perfectly avoiding the main surveillance area, only capturing her back. Kip after kip, the dates were clearly marked at the bottom of the 6DO. The entire activity room was silent except for the faint sounds from the 6DO. Everyone stared intently at the screen. The neighbors watching had their mouths wide open, as if they could fit an egg. The mediator's expression shifted from serious to shocked. Ma Najio Lu's forehead started sweating. Aunt Wang and her daughter were as pale as paper. Aunt Wang's body began to shake. Her daughter quickly supported her. Enough. Turn it off. Turn it off now. I pressed the pause button. The screen froze on Aunt Wang, wearing a mask, with a shifty look, glancing toward the camera. Now, can anyone tell me if this is the behavior of an elderly person who thought it was a benefit and has a bad memory? This is called stealing. It's theft. It's a crime. My home is not a welfare center, and certainly not a trash dump. I have no obligation to let anyone dispose of what I paid for. I switched to cash on delivery, just to get back what rightfully belongs to me. Is that wrong? Because the thief can't steal anymore. It causes mental trauma? What kind of logic is that? Robber logic. Today, you wanted mediation, right? Fine, I want mediation too. I picked up the A4 paper on the table, walked up to Aunt Wang. Compensation? Fine. First return the money for the 183 bottles of milk from the past 6 months, 1,281 yuan. And mental distress? Every morning when I wake up, I think about how to outsmart a thief, not how to start my day's work. Because I couldn't get my milk, I was late for work and got my pay docked. Who compensates for that? Most importantly, a public apology. You must apologize to me publicly in the community group and on the bulletin board, admitting your theft. Restore my reputation. My voice echoed in the activity room. Every word carried weight. Aunt Wang looked at me, her lips turning purple. Her whole body trembled. Suddenly, her eyes rolled back, and she fell straight backward. What's wrong with you? Call 120. Ma Najio Lu panicked, pulled out his phone, and dialed 120. The two mediators also scrambled over. Some neighbors shouted, others stepped back, afraid of getting involved. You caused this. If anything happens to my mom, I'll make your life hell. I stood coldly, watching this farce. Faking illness. This was one of the scenarios I had rehearsed. I know these people too well. When reason fails and evidence is solid, their last weapon is their own body, using the identity of the weak for moral blackmail. I didn't move. I didn't even show a hint of panic. I just watched quietly. If he's really sick, the ambulance will come. If he's faking it, then this act will eventually fall apart. The ambulance arrived quickly. 2 medics rushed in with a stretcher. They did a quick trek. Who's the family? I'm his daughter. The patient has a history of high blood pressure and heart disease. This is a temporary fainting spell caused by emotional agitation. Nothing serious. Let's take him to the hospital for observation first. The doctor's words confirmed my guess. Nothing serious. Aunt Wang's daughter cried out, "Murder," while following the stretcher out. As she passed by me, she tried to grab me, but was stopped by the security guard. A grand mediation meeting ended with an ambulance. They were gone. The activity room quieted down. The remaining neighbors looked at me, their eyes complex, sympathy, satisfaction, and a bit of fear. Ma Najio Lu wiped his sweat and walked over. Xiao Li, look at this mess. Ma Najio Lu, what happened today? Everyone saw the surveillance 6DO. I've already submitted it to the mediator. My demands were clearly stated earlier. 1. Compensate me for the milk money. 2. A public written apology. If these 2 points aren't met, then we'll see each other in court. No, don't take it that far. Between neighbors, it's really not necessary. Whether it's necessary isn't up to me. It's up to the thief and the accuser. I packed up my files and UET by drive, turned around, and left. I didn't want to say another word to these people. My stance was clear. This war, from the moment she submitted that ridiculous application, had no retreat. It was either her defeat or mine. I went home, threw myself onto the sofa, and finally relaxed my tense nerves. A wave of exhaustion washed over me. I didn't know what would happen next. They might continue to throw a tantrum, or they might just give up. But either way, I did what I had to do. I held my ground. In the afternoon, I received a call from an unknown number. Hello, is this Mr. Li? I am. Who is this? I'm Aunt Wang's son. My name is Zhang Wei. I just got back from a business trip and heard about this. His voice was full of apology. Mr. Lin, I'm so really, truly sorry. I failed to discipline my mother. She caused you so much trouble. I stayed silent, not saying a word. He wasn't a bad person. Just old and a bit confused, with a tendency to be greedy. Mr. Zhang, this isn't just being greedy, stealing every day for 6 months, meticulously planning it, and then not only refusing to repent when caught, but also conspiring with family to falsely accuse me, and demand mental distress compensation. That's not called being greedy, that's called moral corruption. There was silence on the other end of the line. I could hear his heavy breathing. You're right. I misspoke. I sincerely apologize for my mother and sister's actions. I saw the 6DO you played in the community, and I also saw that application. I'm ashamed of them. Mr. Li, how about this? All your losses, including the milk money, and your lost wages, will compensate you double. Also, I'll have her write an apology letter and pot it on the bulletin board downstairs. Would that be acceptable? His attitude was sincere, completely different from his mother and sister. I thought about it. My gone wasn't money, nor was it to ruin her reputation. I just wanted justice, an apology. That won't be necessary. Just transfer the milk money, 1,281 yuan, to me. That's what she owes. As for the apology, I need to see it. Oku, no problem. Thank you so much for your generosity. Once I've handled things at the hospital, I'll personally come to apologize. No need to come to my door. I just want to lie in peace from now on, without anyone bothering me. I understand. I promise. He hung up. I felt a mix of emotions. Things seemed to be heading in a good direction. Having a sensible son might be Aunt Wang's greatest fortune in life. The next morning, I received a transfer notification on my phone. 1,281 yuan, from Zhang Wei. In the afternoon, I went downstairs to throw out the trash. I saw a new A4 paper posted on the bulletin board. It was an apology letter, printed. Below it was Aunt Wang's crooked signature and a red thumbprint. In the letter, she admitted to her theft over the past 6 months and expressed deep apologies for the trouble and damage to my reputation. She begged for my forgiveness. I stood in front of the bulletin board for a long time. Many neighbors passing by pointed and whispered about the letter. I won this absurd war in my own way. I should be happy, but somehow, I couldn't feel any joy. I just felt tired. A bone-deep exhaustion. The apology letter stayed on the bulletin board for a week, becoming the biggest news in our building. Aunt Wang never went out again. I heard her daughter took her to lie at her place. Zhang Wei sent me a message once, apologizing again, and said they were planning to sell the house. I replied, best wishes. Everything was over. My life returned to peace. Every morning, the milk delivery guy knocked on time. I drank my milk. No longer worrying about an empty milk box. No longer checking the surveillance for those unpleasant images. The hallway was quiet. I no longer ran into that uncomfortable person in the elevator. I got the peace I wanted, but I felt something had changed. I started becoming suspicious. When my neighbor across the hall greeted me warmly in the morning, my first thought was, does he have an ulterior motive? A new family moved in downstairs. They gave me some fruit. I accepted with a smile, but threw the fruit away as soon as I closed the door. I'm afraid. Afraid that behind those smiling faces, there's another face. I'm afraid that so-called kindness and goodwill are just setups for the next exploitation. Aunt Wang is gone, but she's like a ghost living in my heart. She showed me the ugliest, most shameless side of human nature, and destroyed the last bit of beautiful imagination I had about neighborly relations. I couldn't lie in this community anymore. I started looking at houses online. I wanted to move to a place farther away, newer, where no one knows me. I told a friend about this. My friend was surprised. Didn't you win? You drove that old lady away. Why do you need to move? Yeah, I won. But winning was too exhausting. To prove I wasn't wrong, I stayed up all night, gathering evidence and planning countermeasures, preparing for a lawsuit. To get back my 7 yuan bottle of milk, I had to turn myself into a thorny fighter. I don't want to lie this anymore. I don't want to constantly be on guard against the next Aunt Wang. I understand you. There's a saying, if you can't fight them, avoid them. Sometimes, leaving is the best choice. Yeah, if I can't fight them, I'll avoid them. I took a month to find a new house and sign the contract. The day I packed my bags, the sun was shining. I put things into boxes one by one. Finally, I saw the surveillance camera I had installed. I took it down, put it back in its original box. I don't need it anymore. I hope in my new place, I'll never have to use it again. The moving truck was parked downstairs. I dragged my last suitcase out the door. I looked back at this apartment I'd lived in for less than a year. It held my exhaustion from overtime, my hopes for life, and a war that drained me. I closed the door and turned toward the elevator. My new home was in a very new community. The neighbors seemed to be young people like me. We'd nod politely when meeting in the elevator, but no one would overly pry into your private life. This distance felt very comfortable. I didn't order milk anymore. I bought a small fridge and go grocery shopping once a week. Yogurt, milk, all kinds of flavors, stuffed full. In the morning, I take a carton from the fridge, stand on the spacious balcony, look at the distant buildings and sky, and feel a sense of security and freedom. I no longer worry about things in my fridge being stolen. Sometimes, late at night, I think of Aunt Wang. Remember her masked face. Remember her daughter's sharp screams. Remember that F4 paper saying, cut off my food supply. Those images are like a nightmare. But I no longer feel anger or sorrow. I just see it as a lesson. A lesson about human nature, about society, and about myself, an expensive one. It taught me that kindness needs to have an edge. It taught me that concession doesn't bring peace. It also taught me that when an environment suffocates you, bravely leaving is the best protection for yourself. One day, a former friend sent me a screenshot. It was from our old community's group chat. Someone was discussing the apartment next door, saying the new resident had a big dog. Every morning around 5, the dog had to go out, barking loudly in the hallway, keeping the whole building awake. The new resident was a tough young man, arguing with anyone who complained. Even the property management couldn't handle it. The group was full of complaints. Someone said, I miss the Xiao Li who used to lie here. So quiet, so nice. A bunch of people chimed in agreement. I looked at the chat log and smiled, then turned off my phone. The sun outside was just right. I finished the last sip of yogurt, stood up, and got ready to go for a walk in the nearby park. The cherry blossoms downstairs were in bloom. I wanted to go see them. My life, it's time to turn a new